Hi there everyone, welcome back to Dandelion Delphi Tutorials. We're going to have a look at the Supplementary of 2015 question 1. Usually grade 10s can do this question, but since it contains a one-dimensional array, this will only be for the grade 11s and 12s. This here is the interface. It's for a property that we need to generate an advertisement for. The user is going to enter the market value and what the property is selling for, number of bedrooms, bathrooms, and select that if they have a pool. And then you have to display the advertisement below. They do explain here that the market value is the municipal value and that the selling price of the property is what it actually sells for. That is important because that determines whether this is a bargain or not that we have to add to the advertisement. So in this first button, Generate Advertisement, they want you to display this information here by following these bullets. Remember in a paper when they have these little brackets there, that really means it's your variables or fields that you're going to place in there, separated by a hash. The first bullet just tells you that you shouldn't have any decimal places for the selling price. And then the next one says if the pool checkbox have been selected, you are adding pool hash to the end of this advertisement. And then also you would add the word bargain if the selling price is less than the market value. Remember when you see this word less than, make sure, is it less than and equal to, or is it just less than? Something to highlight or to read twice. Just make sure that you don't lose the mark for including the equal sign in this case, but next time maybe excluding it could also be a mistake. The best way to get good marks in IT is really to practice. Watching videos only is not going to help you, so go to www.education.gov.za, go and download this paper and do it while you're watching the video. Here is the example of output. So here they explain to you that the market value was 950,000 and selling price was 850, so it was less than the market value. So therefore we had bargain added there, and then we also had a pool, so that's why pool is included here. When the market value is higher now, less than the selling price, then we're not going to add bargain, we're just going to exclude that, and this place also doesn't have a pool, so that's just excluded from here. Press pause and try it yourself, and then watch the memo next. There are many ways that you could accomplish this, but what I've done is I have built a string. So there's just the input from the user, from our edit boxes, all of them edit boxes, string to float where it's real values, the marketplace and the market value and the selling price, that would be real. Number of beds and baths, that would be integer, so I would store that as integer variables. And then I just start off my advert. This is the basic advert. So the selling price, very important that you use (0) there, because they didn't want you to display any decimal values, but you had to display it in a currency. Then the hash, number of beds followed by the word bed hash, then number of baths followed by bath hash. Now if they checked the pool checkbox, so on our form there's a pool checkbox, if they check that, you can add here equals to true, but our if statements will automatically check if a Boolean variable is true without adding that. But then I'm going to add to this advert variable. Is advert got a value there? Now I'm adding to the back of it pool and hash. And then if the selling price is less than the market value, that means it's a bargain, and to this advert it would add then the word bargain. So let's say that it didn't have a pool, it wasn't a bargain, it would only, S advert would now only contain the selling price, the number of beds, and the number of baths. If it had a pool, pool hash would be added. Let's say it didn't have a pool, so this won't be added, but it was a bargain, so to this we would add the word bargain. So this can't be a nested if, because they can have a pool and they can have and it could be a bargain. So don't add an else here. It has to be two separate if statements. Both of these if statements don't need an else, because nothing needs to happen if they were false. So if they didn't have a pool, nothing needs to happen. If it wasn't a bargain, nothing needs to happen. And when you look at the output, you would see that the output was at the top of, let's just go back, at the top of the rich edit, both of these. I call these a hidden question. I would, just to be sure, add a richedit.lines.clear here, because it's at the top. Every time the person clicks, the output is at the top, and there could be a mark for this, even though the question didn't say that. And then my heading, house for sale. Don't be lazy with these headings, because they often earn marks. And then just my advert that I've been building there in my richedit.lines.add. You can now test your output and enter in these values. And when you click on that, remember to click on that they have a pool. Then this should be your output. This should be calculated as a bargain. And these are the values for the second example of output. Remember to now untick pool, and when I click on generate advertisement, it cleared it. And now you will see there's no pool and no bargain added to this. For the next two questions, they both actually only have one line of code in it. It's important to take note in your exam if these square brackets means code inside of this, and that would be the name appearing on that object. So if we have a quick look at the form, you will see there is a radio button, painting and tiling. You just have to double click on it and code on the inside. So this one says when they click on painting, you must use a variable and assign the value P to it. And then on the next one, for the radio button tiling, you're going to store the character T in a global variable. You can try it yourself now, but make use of the same global variable for both. You will be using that variable in this next button 1.2.3. So in this next tab called Living Room Renovations, I'm going to double click on painting. And this is, I just called that one C-type Reno. That is a global variable that I've declared up there. I declared it as a char data type since it's a single character. And then I assigned a P for the painting, and I did the same for tiling. There we're using a T. It's important to declare variables as the type that they explain to you. So they say a single character, because a char data type can be used in operators and case statements and in an inc, not that we're going to use it here, but it allows us to use certain types of structures since it is a char, whereas if you store it as a string, you would not be able to use it in an in operator, for example. Moving on to the next button, we are going to calculate and display the renovation cost. The user is going to enter the number of square meters as an integer value, and they will select the renovation type, either the painting or tiling, and then the cost of each must be calculated. So let's just break this question down and do and test A first, and then we can move on to the tiling. So A is for painting. Remember to get the input there from the user for the square meters. Then we are going to, for the painting, we are going to have to use the following calculation. 1 liter of paint is used to paint an area of 8 square meters. The pricing structure for paint per drum is 1 liter and 2 liter and 5 liters. They give you there. Then they say display the calculated values in the provided output using the following format. So area, that is what they entered in square meters. Then the volume of paint that we're going to calculate with our 8 square meters. And then we have to determine the number of drums that they need, 1 liter, 2 and 5 liter. And then we're going to give them the total cost for what they have, well, for what they need. And then at the bottom here, they say round your output of the total cost off to 2 decimal places. So press pause and try it yourself. Just a quick tip, this is a typical question where we would need to use ceil. If you're going to divide a number by 8 to get the liters of paint that we need here, and we use the round function, it might round the value down, because round will either round up or down depending on the decimal places. And if it rounds down, you're not going to have enough paint. So since we can't buy half liters of drums, we have to buy full liters, and we want to ensure that we have enough paint, we're going to have to round this answer up, making use of ceil. Regardless of whether the user wanted the area to be painted or tiled, they're going to enter the area in the edit box. So I'm going to store it as an integer variable. Then I want to calculate my liters of paint. If you have a look quickly at the output, you will see the volume there still has 0.5 liters shown. However, that would have been rounded up to 19 liters. So that makes it 3 5-liter drums. That gives me 15, and then 2 liters, which will give me 19. So this 18.5 is the original value. So that's why, if you look at my answer here, you will see that I first stored it as a real value. When we divide, this needs to be real. Take the area divided by 8. That is the actual liters. But then to work out how many drums I need, my I liters, that I need to ceil the R liters to round it up. Remember, ceil for sealing. Now I had to determine the number of buckets of paints that I need to buy. So I'm starting at the largest one. I'm starting with the 5 liters. How many 5 liters do I need? So let's change this here to 19 as in the example. I will need, if I divide that by 5, the number of full liters, 5-liter drums that I need, I will have there 3. So that would give me my 15 liters of the 19. Now I have to figure out how much is left. After I've given you your 5 liters that you're going to pay for, then this value here must change. So I'm removing the 5-liter drums that I gave you. So if I take 19 mod 5, mod gives me the remainder. My answer there will be 4. Now I'm going to take my liters again, and I'm going to divide by 2. How many 2 liters do I need to give you? That is 2. And now I need to work out how many 1 liters. Now the 1 liters is really just your mod 2, what is left. It's either going to be a value of 1 or 0. Any number that we divide is either going to be 0 or 1. In this case, it would be 0. So I have 3 5 liters, which would give me, let's type that, 5 liters, that would give me 15. Then I have 4 liters left. So 2 liters, that will give me 4. And then 0 1 liters, so my 15 plus 4, that will give me my 19. Here I now have in I5L, I2L, and I1L the number of the paint that I need and to calculate the cost. So this would be in this case 0, so it's multiplying that by 0, so it's not adding any cost for the 1 liters. The 2 liters, that would be 2 in our example, times by 92.3, and then my 5 liters times by 199.00. This is really not needed. You can take that out, but you can add it to, gives you the same answer. Important that I didn't say is that at the top here, that C-type Renault of mine, remember they got values here. If it is a P, so they clicked on the radio button with a P, all of this is inside of the if statement for that if C-type Renault is P. So this is calculating if I want to paint, what do I what is it going to cost me? So the area is the original area that was entered by the user in the edit box. And again, don't be lazy with your square meters there at the end. There is often marks allocated for that. And then the volume of the paint. Now this is my original amount of paint before I sealed it. And then the number of drums for 1, 2, and 5. And then an empty line. There's 2 empty lines there. Have a look at your output. You will see there's the first 2 lines, empty line, next 3 lines, empty line. Again, what I would call a hidden question. Here's my another empty line. And then finally my cost displayed to 2 decimal places. So now we can actually test it because it would give us the paint. You just have to click on the radio button for the paint. But I will show you the next part of the question for the tiling. In the same button, but if they selected tiling in the radio button, they say make use of a dialog box to get input from the user for the cost of the tiles per square meters. Now when we have to get input using a dialog box, that means we are going to use an input box. When we have to use a dialog box to display a message, you will use a show message. They also then say add 5 square meters to the original square meters that was entered to provide for breakages, and then calculate the cost. So you're going to add an extra 5 to the input. Display the area to be tiled in square meters. The total cost must be rounded to 2 decimal places, and then they give it as an example there of input and output. So press pause and try it yourself. This here is in the else of my if statement. There I'm testing for P. You're going to use I area there, and then an else. And I'm just testing for T here as well. I guess it's either going to be a P or a T, but just to be sure, I've added that this time. Here is my input box. My input box has a default value of 50 there. And the reason for that is if you look at the output here, you'll see we have to enter 50 Rand per square meter. Now, I always do this whenever I have to use an input box. I put a default value in according to the first example of input. I'm going to type it once anyway, but this actually saves some time. Should I have to test this more than once, I can just click on the OK button of my input box. I don't have to retype 50 every time. And I'm going to store it as a real value or tile cost. I can see there it says 50.00, so maybe it's possible to enter real values, or well, it is obviously, even though that one was 50.00. And then they said to the area you had to add 5 square meters. Now remember your BODMAS, you have to put brackets around this to first determine the area plus the 5 and then multiply that total area with our cost. Else without the brackets you will only be multiplying 5 with the tiling cost. And there's my output. I'm going to display the original area. And then I'm going to display the cost. There's the cost, FF currency, 10, 2. As they say, display it, rounded off to 2 decimal places. And we can quickly test our program. 148 square meters. Click on painting and calculate your cost. There's the original 18.5. And then 2 liters, 3, 5 liters. And your total cost should be 781.6. And for the tiling, change this to 100. Click on tiling, calculate. You see my input box pops up. My 50 is there already. So I can just click OK. I don't have to go and type the 50 every time I test this part of the program. And it's 100 square meters and the total cost is 5250. Let's move on to the next button, calculate amount due. The user is going to enter a previous reading for electricity and then the next one, the current one. And you have to determine what they owe. So first they say if the current reading entered by the user is less than the previous reading. Please note again, it's less than and not less than or equal to. It's only less than. Display a suitable message and clear the current reading text box. Now, often we get matrics when we're matric marking that it get 149 out of 150 because they won't do something like clearing the text box. Take careful note that you do all the instructions. This is in a paragraph and there's actually more than one thing to do in here. If you haven't downloaded the paper, you would have to screenshot this because I can't show everything on one page. Oh, there, screenshot it quickly. And then they say if the current reading is equal to or greater than, so this can just be placed in an else because if it's not less than 600 or less than the one compared to the other, then it would be greater than. The user will be entering these values in the edit boxes provided. So for any units used from 0 to 600, it's 1 Rand per unit, and everything over 600, the first lot is going to cost 600 Rand, which is really that tariff, plus then 1 Rand 50 per unit for all units that exceed 600. And then you have to display the amount in the label, and again currency with 2 decimal places. So I'll scroll up a bit and then you press pause and try to solve. This is the form with the previous and the current reading, and we are going to calculate the amount due in this button. So first we need to get input from the user from those 2 edit boxes. Make sure you use the correct ones for your correct variables. Remember, your variables don't need to be long. They can be short as long as it is clear as to what they are doing. Then we have the validation really to test if the previous is greater than the current. That means they made a mistake, and we had to display a message, and then we had to clear the edit box for the current value that was entered. If you cleared both, that would not be a problem. However, it's important to clear the current one. That would be where the mark is allocated. Now, if this was not true, then we would have to go to the else. And first we need to calculate the difference between the two, the current reading minus the previous reading. So let's say, for example, this answer was 700. We would then have to test if what I've used is less or equal to 600. If it was, I multiplied there by 1, but really the amount due would just be that. So I know that sometimes you guys just follow the paper and you multiply by 1. But it's the same as just saying that. So if the amount was not less or equal to, very important that equal sign, it would go to my else. And here I'm calculating the first 600 as 600. And then anything over 600 would then be calculated at 1.5 Rand. So I've used my R used minus my 600, which is included in there. So if it's 700 minus 600, I'll be left with 100. That is multiplied by 1.5, and then I display the output. In my label, remember they have captions and assignment statements. They don't have brackets. And I'm just displaying the amount as a currency and comma 10, comma 2. Sorry, it's that time of the day where the dogs start barking. The example of input and output was to 100 and 2735, and then we can calculate the amount due, which should give you 652.5. They didn't give you an example of output when this was invalid, so it could be, well, it would be a good idea. Let's say we just put 1000 in there. And yes, we get the message, and that current reading is cleared as the question was asking. For this question, we'll be using an array. They have provided it. I'll show you that soon. You'll see it at the top of the program. So they want to install solar geysers and are investigating the possibility there are 3 sizes of the solar geysers available. The user is going to enter the sizes, but they'll only enter this part there. An array that contains the string of text. So let's show you the array quickly. If we scroll up to the top, you can see the array there. It contains the size, a dash, and then the name or the brand. So there's the size, there's 50, there is 150 and 100. So now we're going to search through this array according to what they have entered, and we would like to then display the brand names of these geysers. That's what they're explaining here. Again, if you don't have the paper, screenshot this. Write code to display the types of geysers in the array that matches the capacity entered by the user. Now, it says no validation is needed, so you don't have to display if you can't find it. We would assume now, we only do what the paper is asking us to do, so we would assume that they're either going to type 50, 100 or 150. We don't have to accommodate for invalid input. And then here, this is quite important. If you see they entered 50, you will see a whole list of them displaying. So if you go to my array videos, you'll see that I have videos to display one or many. In this case, we're displaying many. And if we're displaying many values from an array, you are going to use a for loop. If you want to display just one and stop the loop, then you're going to use a while or a repeat loop. So that's actually quite important to take note of, but I'll scroll back to the question and then you try it yourself. Press pause before I show you the memo. Whether you are searching through an array or whether you are searching through a text file, I always suggest you select any one of these values and copy and paste it to where you are going to use this. So we are going to do it in here, and I would paste it anywhere in this button so I have a clear idea what I'm dealing with. We have to get the input from the user. Yes, you could have stored it as an integer. It doesn't really matter. You would have to change it then here to a string again. So that's why I just kept the value as a string. We're using a memo, and memos work exactly the same way as rich edits. So we would have .lines.add, and we have a probably lines.clear, but clear works as well. Now, since we have to find many, we're going to use a for loop. So just to show you guys, I always align my begins and ends with what they belong to. I don't know why I didn't do it here, but that just helps me to know what they belong to. This 20 here, though, comes from, if I scroll up, you'll see that the array was declared from 1 to 20. I want to loop through the whole array. So that's why I used for loop from 1 to 20. In the square brackets of an array where it's declared, that often gives you an indication of what you should be using in your for loops. So let's just jump back to find the geyser. So there's my for loop 1 to 20 according to the declaration of the array. And I'm going to store each array there as a string variable. I just do that because I want to delete some parts of it. I want to find that, and then I want to find that, well, including the Q. And since I want to make changes, instead of deleting from the array, I'm going to delete from sgeyser so it would work in the future. So what I'm doing here is I'm finding the position of this dash. And if you watch my reading from a text file into an array question, if ever you have to use pos to find something and extract something else, pos copy delete is your go-to place. It always works. There are several other ways, but this one is really the easiest and the best chance of getting full marks. So I would now find the dash there in sgeyser that I saved. That is one item from my array. for example, this one here. So in this example, the pos of that dash would be 3. I found that dash in position 1, 2, 3. Then to get the size, I'm looking for that 50. I'm going to copy esquisse from 1 for IPOS minus 1. I don't want to copy out the dash. That's in position 3. So I'm copying it for only 2 characters in this example. So I'll be copying out 50. Then I'm going to delete esquisse from position 1 for IPOS characters, so that would be 3. So I'm deleting that part there, 3 characters, which would leave me only with a brand name there at the back. And that's now left in esquisse. Now I'm going to test if the size that I found in my array is equal to what the user entered there at the top. If it is in the memo.lines.add, similar to the reach edit, I'm going to display esquisse, which would be the name of, or the brand name of the geezer. You can test our program quickly by entering 50, and then you'll see all the geezers listed there as per the example of output in the paper. Thank you guys for watching Dandelion Delphi tutorials. Most of this paper you can find in Dandelion Delphi Book 1. But there is more explanations in Dandelion Delphi Book 2 about arrays. Thank you for watching, and remember to leave some comments. Hope to see you soon.